So today we have got America versus Russia. So we're going to be going through each individual UFC weight class and picking the highest ranked American fighter and pairing them off against the highest ranked Russian fighter. So we're going to be starting right away in the heavyweight division, and that would be Jon Jones versus Alexander Volkov. Now this would actually be an interesting matchup because if you've watched Jon Jones' career, you will know that Jon Jones tends to struggle when he is in there with guys who are bigger or the same size as him, and Volkov would be bigger than Jon Jones in this matchup. He is the natural heavyweight, and as you can see in terms of height, he is taller than Jon Jones. Now Jon Jones would have the reach advantage over Volkov, but I think Volkov could definitely cause Jon Jones a lot of problems in there. Volkov is really underrated in my opinion. Now yes, he is coming off a loss to Ciryl Gane, but let's be honest, we all know that there wasn't a loss. He clearly beat Ciryl Gane in there. The fight before that, he beat Sergey Pavlovich. The fight before that, he beat Tai Tuivasa. Volkov has been in there with a lot of the top 10 ranked heavyweights, and he's beaten a lot of them. Now Volkov is primarily known for his striking. He is a very good striker, and I think his striking would be what would cause Jon Jones problems. Now throughout his career, his grappling has been his weakness, although in his later fights recently, you've seen a real improved ground game from Alexander Volkov, but still the ground game would be his main weakness. And that is where I think Jon Jones would have a lot of success. I think Jon Jones' grappling would be too much for Volkov, whether that would be his traditional wrestling with his single legs, his double legs, or whenever he gets Volkov up against the cage with his trips and sweeps. I think Volkov would really have a hard time defending the grappling of Jon Jones, and I actually think Jon Jones would be able to stop Alexander Volkov inside 2 rounds. I think Jon Jones would be able to take Volkov down, and I think he would be able to submit him pretty early on. Now, do I think Jon Jones would be able to submit Volkov as early as what Tom Aspinall did? No. But I do think he will be able to submit him inside 2 rounds. But again, who knows? Maybe Jon Jones would struggle with the size, pause of Alexander Volkov and might not be able to get the takedowns off. And if that was the case, I think Jon Jones will be in trouble because Volkov is a very good striker that carries a lot of power. Although if I had to put money on it, Jon Jones' grappling would overwhelm Alexander Volkov, and I think he would be submitted inside 2 rounds. So that there is 1-0 to America. Moving on to the light heavyweight division, we have got former champion Jamal Hill taking on current champion Magomed Ankalaev. Now again, this right here would be an interesting matchup. I think Jamal Hill is underrated. I know a lot of people won't agree with me on that one. People are saying Jamal Hill is one of the worst UFC champions of all time. I disagree. I think this guy is underrated. He's a great striker with really good takedown defense. His takedown defense currently in the UFC is at 73%. And Jamal Hill has given us some really good moments, most notably his win over Glover Teixeira. That there is probably one of the most one-sided beatdowns in UFC title fight history. Now Magomed Ankalaev is on a crazy run at the minute. Obviously he's just coming off that win over Alex Pereira at UFC 313, and Jamal Hill is currently on a 2-fight losing streak where he got KO'd at UFC 300 by Pereira in the first round, and then he got stopped in the 3rd round by Yuri Prohaska. Now those aren't 2 bad losses to have on your resume. Yuri Prohaska, former champion, top 2 guy in the division. Alex Pereira, former champion, number 1 ranked in the UFC's light heavyweight division. So it's not as if Jamal Hill is losing to scrubs. And since Jamal Hill became champion and lost the belt and he's came back, it is clear that Jamal Hill is suffering with injury still, but he for some reason is continuously rushing back to the cage. He rushed back for UFC 300. I understand why he done that. It was the main event, UFC 300, the biggest card in UFC history, to go in there against Alex Pereira and a chance to get your title back. So I understand why he took that. Then he was meant to fight Khalil Roundtree. Obviously we know what happened there. He was injured, had to pull out of that one. But even from the UFC 300 to UFC 311 where he returned, it was still a really quick turnaround, especially from being KO'd in the 1st round. And he came into that matchup with knee sleeves on, if I remember correctly. So he was injured in the Yuri Prohaska matchup. Then he lost to Yuri. Now they've booked him against Khalil Roundtree again. That fight fell through again, but now it has been rebooked. So this guy is obviously dealing with a lot of injuries. But back to this matchup right here. Magomed Ankalaev is really good. Obviously, I don't even want to say Ankalaev's known for his wrestling, because he's not, because his wrestling isn't it is better than what Jamal Hill's would be offensively, but I don't think he'd be able to get Jamal Hill down. And on the feet, I think Jamal Hill is a great striker, and the fact that he's a southpaw and he's a big puncher as well, it would be interesting to see the striking exchanges between Magomed Ankalaev, who is also a southpaw. But just going off right now, form, and just in general, I think Jamal Hill would struggle with the boxing of Magomed Ankalaev. He's got a really good straight left, and I think the fact that Ankalaev would be the one to mix in the grappling, he might not get Jamal Hill down, but he'll get Jamal Hill thinking. So I am going for Magomed Ankalaev to win this one. So that would be 1-1 between America and Russia. Moving on into the middleweight division, we have got Hamzad Shamayv versus Shawn Strickland. I would love to see this matchup. I think purely for the build-up, to be honest. I think the build-up between Hamzad and Shawn Strickland would be absolute chaos, and I think this fight could be interesting. Obviously, Hamzad is so dominant in the early stages of the fight, probably one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant first-round fighter we have ever seen in UFC history, but we know he fades, and we know Shawn Strickland has the gas tank. Now, it would be, can Shawn Strickland outlast Hamzad? That would be the answer, because obviously, Hamzad is just so dominant in rounds 1 and 2. But Shawn Strickland does have really good grappling, offensively and defensively. Now, do I think Shawn Strickland is going to out-grapple Hamzad Shamayv? No, I don't. But I do think Hamzad Shamayv would struggle more than what people would think to keep Shawn Strickland down, because Strickland does have really good get-ups, scrambles. He is a good defensive wrestler. And if Hamzad can't get Strickland out of there early, I know Shawn Strickland isn't the biggest puncher, but he has a gas tank. Now, obviously, when you see him in his training footage, when he's fighting YouTubers, he just beats the fuck out of them. But when he's actually in the cage, like his DDP2 performance, he done nothing. So it's kind of hard to gauge what Shawn Strickland you're going to get in there. We could get the Strickland that went in there against Israel Adesanya, and if Hamzat doesn't get that Strickland out early, I think Hamzat would lose to that Shawn Strickland in the later stages of the fight. But I think Hamzat's grappling would overwhelm Shawn Strickland, and I think he would get Shawn Strickland out of there. Do I believe that? Like, I just can't see him submitting Shawn Strickland. I think he would TKO Shawn Strickland inside 2 rounds. So that is 2-1 to Russia. Moving on in the welterweight division. This is a surprising one because Sean Brady is obviously the highest ranked American fighter. People might say, what about Belal Muhammad? Pretty sure, I know he's from Chicago, but he said he's from Palestine. So I'm just not going to include him. I'm just going to include Sean Brady. So you've got Sean Brady, and surprisingly the highest ranked Russian welterweight is Renat Fretinoff. Now, obviously, we're not going to waste much time on this. Sean Brady would absolutely smoke him. Sean Brady is a future champion, I'm just going to be honest. I know he got TKO'd by Belal Muhammad, but this guy is so dominant. Arguably delivered one of the most dominant performances of the year against Leon Edwards, who he absolutely shut out. Renat Fretinoff is not beating Sean Brady. Now, Renat Fretinoff does have some good wins on his resume. He hasn't lost since 2014, but Renat is never going to be top 5 in the welterweight division, in my opinion. Sean Brady absolutely smokes him. So that is then 2-2 between America and Russia. Moving on, we are going to the lightweight division. I'm so glad right now we are not going to get this matchup. We have got Islam Makashev versus Justin Gaethje. Obviously, for those who remember, this was actually talked about after Justin Gaethje came back and beat Rafael Fiziev. But thankfully, it seems like we are going to get Islam versus Ilia Topuria, the dream matchup that we need to see. But yeah, if we're being honest with this matchup, Justin Gaethje can pose Islam problems, especially with the leg kicks that Gaethje throws. But in his later stages of his career, he's kind of went away from always chopping with the low kick. Now, he is a big puncher with a lot of power, and we have seen Islam Makashev hit and hurt before. In fact, we've seen him KO'd before. But yeah, Islam Makashev, I think on the feet, he's actually better than Justin Gaethje. I think Islam is a really good kickboxer. And in the grappling, it's not even close. Islam Makashev would finish Justin Gaethje. Therefore, that brings the score up to 3-2 for Russia. Moving on into the featherweight division, we have got Mosarev taking on Brian Ortega. People will not agree with me on this take, but Brian Ortega would beat Mosarev in my opinion. I'm just being honest, and I'm going to explain. Mosarev obviously is 19-0. He's on a crazy win streak. He's beat a lot of good guys. His grappling is obviously his best asset. He's a really good grappler, but he also has really good boxing, although he lacks the power. Brian Ortega has got good hands, He's extremely powerful, and his grappling is really good, plus he's really big for the division. I don't think Mosarev would beat Brian Ortega. Like, if Mosarev shot takedowns on Brian Ortega, he might be able to take Ortega down, but Brian Ortega's jiu-jitsu, his grappling, like, I don't think that's somewhere Mosarev would want to be, because I don't think Mosarev could just out-wrestle and just stall in positions against Brian Ortega. I don't think that would be smart for him to do. And on the feet, yes, I think Mosarev's hands are underrated. I think he is a good boxer, but I don't know. I would just favour Brian Ortega to catch him. Now, obviously, you could go, well, what about Diego Lopez? Big puncher, good grappling. Look what Mosarev done to him. And that is a good point. But I just think Brian Ortega beats him. You can let me know in the comments. I don't expect a lot of people to agree with me on this take. But I think the grappling of Ortega and his striking. But then that's me trying to say Diego Lopez is a worse Brian Ortega, which I'm not trying to say. But yeah, I just think styles make fights, and I think Brian Ortega would beat Mosarev. I genuinely believe that. So that would then bring us up to 3-3, if I remember correctly. Let me just go back and score it. So we have got John Jones, Ankalaev, Hamzad Shamayv, Shawn Brady. Yeah, we are 3-3. 3-3 going into the last two divisions. We have got Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan. This right here was the matchup to make. We're not getting it, we know. Maybe if Sean O'Malley wins the belt back, I think we might see it then. But as of right now, we know what's next for O'Malley. It's the rematch against Mosarev. Look, I think I would love to see this over 5 rounds. And that's what all these matchups are in my mind. By the way, 5-round fights. I would love to see this one. Their first fight was close. Like, let's give Sean O'Malley credit in there. He showed that he was elite. Now, Petr Yan won the first fight. I'm just going to be honest. And I think over 5 rounds, I'm even more confident that Petr Yan would beat him. I think Petr Yan would be able to break down Sean O'Malley over 5 rounds. And I think Petr Yan would beat Sean O'Malley by decision over 5 rounds. So, that then makes the scoring 4-3 to Russia. And finally, going in to the last one in the flyweight division, we have got Brandon Royval, the number 1 ranked flyweight. He is going to be taking on Tiger. How the fuck do you say this guy's name? I can't say his first name. Beckov. Anyway, Beckov is not beating Brandon Royval, if we're being honest. Brandon Royval is really good hands, really good grappling in my opinion, and I think he would win. So that there brings the score, if I remember correctly. America, Russia, America, Russia. That is it tied at 4-4. That's it tied at 4-4. So a draw. We have got a draw on our hands here. Let me know how you would have scored this in the comments below. And let me know what countries you want me to pair off next. Thanks again for the support. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again in the next one.